So next up, we have a presentation from Emyria with the ticker code EMD. To tell us more about their clinical stage drug development, I will hand you over to Managing Director, Dr. Michael Winlo. Hello, Michael.
Hi, Jane. How are
Thanks
you?
for joining us again. Let me bring up your presentation.
Wonderful. Okay. Well, good morning, everybody. Thanks for joining, and real pleasure to present an update on the progress that Emyria has made in the last 12 months and where we're heading next. So for those who haven't followed our company, we're a biotech company that uses real-world data that we collect from our own patients that we treat at our own clinical service subsidiary. And we use that information to develop an independent drug registration program for major unmet needs. So somewhat uniquely, we're a biotech that's managing our own clinical service. Next slide, please. We're collecting really exceptional real-world clinical data from these patients. And next slide, please. And then using those insights to build out our drug development program. So the data informs both the dose forms that we develop, but importantly, the indications that we pursue, because we have that background insight on what treatments are working most effectively for which patients. So today, that really has allowed us to build two major platforms. One is using ultra-pure cannabinoid-based medicines. That's predominantly the prescriptions that our patients seek when they're referred to our clinics when usual treatments have stopped working for them. And we've been able to use that data to develop two standalone programs so far in our portfolio. That's EMD RX5, EMD RX7 for low dose and high dose CBD indications respectively. Our initial opportunity for EMD RX5, the most advanced program, is for an over-the-counter treatment for psychological distress. But we see both of these candidates having the potential to address multiple indications. And we've also designed the program in a deliberate fashion so that they're also suitable for FDA and other major global markets as well. And I'll explain more about that shortly. The second dimension to our biotech business is a really exciting asset. This is a library of more than 100 MDMA analogues, which have been built over 10 years. So we're not doing this from scratch. We're actually coming at this from a running start. And these unique chemicals have a huge range of potentials, both as next generation psychedelic assisted treatments, but also as potential therapies for a range of neurological and non-neurological disorders as well. And we are rapidly leading the screening and development of that library. Terrific. So really to put this into picture about how we approach drug development, we'll talk through our cannabinoid development program. Really involves three steps here: learning from our real world patients, developing a really high performing and unique dose form, and then pursuing that registration activity. Great. So I've mentioned the data. This is really the heart of our business. And we have collected information on more than 6,000 patients. And of course, that's growing every month. We are able to see which kinds of cannabinoids are working for which problems and in which patients. And to give you a sense of the diversity of the data that we have children as young as 2 that are treated at our clinic, patients as old as 98. We are touching a wide range of cannabinoid dose forms and dose strengths for more than 40 different clinical indications. And from that, we can draw really profound insights on what doses are working most effectively for which patient groups. And of course, that informs our drug development programs. One of the things that really stood out to us, I guess, being in this space, was the need for better delivery systems for cannabinoid treatments. Plants have inspired, a majority of our up to 40% of registered treatments, I should say, have had their original origins from plants. The one that you're probably most familiar with would be antibiotics, which is famously found in the penicillin mold. But things like statins, a very commonly prescribed drug for high cholesterol, aspirin, a drug we're all familiar with, all came from plant origins. But of course, the pressure for reliability, for scale, for high quality manufacture and regulation has meant that these medicines don't stay in their plant form. They eventually become regulated biopharmaceuticals. But with the cannabinoids, we're kind of stuck at this sort of 2.0 phase. We really haven't seen the transition into what we think is cannabis 3.0, that true biopharmaceutical development. We're still dealing with tinctures, oils, droppers, even smokable flower in many cases as well. We have more than 250 different products in Australia now, only one registered medicine, but none of those really in that biopharmaceutical form. And we think that's required for us to really reach the patients and the market opportunity that exists. So how we're approaching that? Well, one of the first problems we need to address is a really important one. That's the bioavailability of CBD. It's notoriously poor. And what that means is only a very small percentage of the medicine that you ingest orally actually makes it to the bloodstream where it can do its work. So when you swallow a tablet, some of that you will slip through the gut and exit. Some of it won't be absorbed across the gut wall and not even get into the bloodstream. Of the medicine that actually makes it through into the bloodstream, it encounters the liver, and the liver is your primary organ for metabolizing and breaking down drugs. And what that ultimately means is that only a very small percentage of medicine actually makes it through into the bloodstream, as I mentioned. For cannabis, it can be as low as 6.5%. And that's a pretty costly way of delivering medicine if you consider the out-of-pocket costs for CBD. It can be high as 5 to 10 cents per milligram. Look at using new technology to really try and lift the bioavailability of CBD. And we're really excited to have had some successes here relatively rapidly. And so we ran a key dog study on two leading formulations, EMDRX5 and EMDRX7, and we're able to achieve more than double and nearly 4 times as much bioavailability compared to the leading registered medicine, Epidiolex. We are now taking RX5 into a phase 1 and dosing should start for that next week. RX7 will follow with a phase 1. And now we have 2 really high-performing CBD dose forms for our drug registration programs, and we see opportunities for a range of indications. Being able to deliver more CBD, more with more CBD to the bloodstream, I should say, with improved bioavailability means we can use less CBD to get a similar effect, which means for a more cost-effective medicine, lower side effects, and a lot of potential. So one of the key things we're also focused on is ensuring that our CBD is as pure as possible. We use a synthetic origin for that. We think that gives us cost advantages over the long term and certainly some purity advantages too. This is a complex slide. I should mention that our slides will be available on our website and through the ASX platform later today. I encourage you to download that and take a good look at some of these slides, but I won't spend time on that, other than to say that the purity of our CBD has been deliberately developed to meet FDA requirements. Great. So just quickly through our RX programs, one of the first indications we're targeting is psychological distress. These are symptoms of anxiety and depression that are very prevalent in the adult population. Next slide, please. And as noted by the White House, an area of focus for them as well. So psychological distress is the first target indication we're seeking for an over-the-counter medication. What is psychological distress? Well, it's a cluster of symptoms as noted on the slide here, can result in symptoms: anxiety, stress, depression, GI upset, sleep disturbance. It's more common in patients with chronic disease, and it has a rising prevalence. Importantly, there's no over-the-counter medicine for the short-term treatment of this, and so we think that's a huge opportunity for us. And so what would that mean to have an over-the-counter treatment? That would mean that patients could collect this medication without requiring a prescription. It makes this treatment available through the National Pharmacy Network. Estimates have been it could achieve a $200 million a year market, so a massive opportunity. But for us in our program, this is really just one of the stops on the way to larger markets, bigger unmet needs globally and elsewhere. But we've developed our dose form to meet the requirements for TGA, but also for FDA and other global markets as well. But this will be one of the first demonstrations of the speed of registration we can achieve with our model. Well, this really just says that we've taking our insights from data from our real-world patients. That's where we observed a benefit in psychological distress that's allowed us to develop the dose form that we have. And now we're pursuing registration of that treatment. Technical slide really to show that lots of progress has been made. Our phase 1 is coming. And what allows to be followed here is now further development of novel cannabinoid dose forms, including CBD THC combinations, again, with multiple indication potential for that as well. And here's an update on our timeline. Again, take a look at this from our website. Needless to say, we expect to conclude the pivotal trial programs this year and have our submission in, and then that's up to the TGA to review that application, which could be approved as soon as end of this year, early next year. Great. The other key part of our platform here, just do a quick time check. Thank you. Next slide. We'll go through this quickly, is the MDMA analog development work. psychedelic assisted therapies are showing tremendous promise for some of our most serious mental health disorders globally, and consequently attracting large investment and a lot of innovation. And so we think we have a really unique opportunity to develop this as well. So as I mentioned, we've, in partnership with UWA, are now screening and developing, expanding a library that was already 100 analogues large. And these are MDMA molecules with slight variations, which we think could have potential for a range of indications. And so now we're screening and sorting through that library and looking for safety profiles. We're looking for higher potency, potentially faster acting molecules, and really give ourselves this tremendous diversity and the opportunity to pursue independent drug development programs for a range of major unmet needs. There's a huge appetite for faster acting MDMA to allow therapy sessions to be much shorter than 8 hours. And there's a huge appetite for new neurological treatments also with small molecules that can cross the blood-brain barrier. And we have that in this library. And we can go through these quickly. You might be able to pass through down to the corporate deck here. These slides touch on some of our innovative research programs, our patent portfolio, which is growing. Next slide, thank you. And into the corporate structure, 2 highlights here is that we have this tremendous board with experience and prior FDA approval successes, notably Dr. Karen Smith with 20 FDA approvals, also previously the Chief Medical Officer at Jazz Pharmaceuticals, which purchased Epidiolex and that whole portfolio of GW Pharma for $7 billion early last year. Now, and final slide is our corporate deck, just really to show that we have a terrific registry as well. Needless to say that one of our key holders there is Tatarang, who took an interest in our company last year and now holds 5% of Emyria. So we've got a really tremendous register, great board, and a huge market opportunity ahead of us and the team to take us there. Thank you very much.
Michael, thank you so much for the great presentation. We've had a few questions come through, so I'll jump into it. And I know you did mention this on the call, but so it sounds like your dose forms could have multiple applications. How do you decide what indications to pursue?
Yeah, so that's a really good question. So obviously we're taking our guidance from what our patients are revealing to us through the data we collect. So importantly, we're not just checking in on people, how they're going. We're asking really specific questions, the kinds of questions you would normally get asked, maybe if you're on a clinical study. And so those validated assessments tell us what doses are working for which patients. And from that, we pick the most promising indications and can pursue those.
Thank you, Michael. And will you be working with THC as well?
Yes, we are. To date, we've not announced anything about THC, but absolutely, many of our patients respond to that and seem to require THC for their more serious symptoms and clinical problems. And I think there's a massive opportunity for a really well-developed, highly bioavailable, pure biopharmaceutical with THC as well. So yes, we plan to do that soon.
Wonderful. Well, thank you for joining us again, Michael. And as Michael mentioned, please log on to the website to download the complete investor presentation. Thanks again.
Thank you. Thanks for your time, everyone.